Hello, let us see the ER data model. So, in case of ER data model, we need to understand entity sets, then relationship sets, and attributes. So, we need three things to understand. So, what is entity set? An entity set is thing or object. It is thing or object in real life that is distinguishable from other. For example, that is example of entity is that each student in a particular college. So you can see that each student can be distinguished from each other, and all the students will create a entity set. So if a college has 100 students, then suppose each student is represented by si, then sy comma s1 comma s2 dot up to s100, they will represent each student, that is s1 is a student, s2 is a student, and s100 is a student, and this entire set will be called the student entity set. Now the next thing is the relationship set. What is relationship set? It may happen a particular college has different subjects. So a subject can be computer science, subject can be physics. So we can think that computer science physics as entity in the subject set. So they can create a set in the subject set, because the computer science entity and physics entity, they are distinguished from each other. So they will be creating a subject set. Now there is a relationship between this student and this subject, and that relationship is called the relationship set. For example, student s1 is currently pursuing the computer science, and assume that student s2 is also studying physics, and so on. So this will create a set, and this set will be called the relationship sets. That is, this is a set which relate to different entity set. So this is called the relationship set. Now what is attribute? Attribute related with the sets or entity set, or it may be related to the relationship set. What is attributes? Now consider the student set. For example, consider a student s1. He or she has a university roll number, has a name, has an address. So these are called the attributes. These attributes are used to distinguish each student from another. Now the next thing is that types of attribute. So attribute can be classified into three types of attribute. First one is the simple attribute, then composite attribute. An attribute, from the point of its value, it can be classified into two part: single valued attribute and multi valued attribute, and finally derived attribute. Now what is simple attribute? The example of simple attribute is that this roll number, this is a attribute, all these are attributes. This roll number, this is a simple attribute, because this attribute cannot be decomposed into smaller attribute. Now consider the name of a student. Generally the name of the student cannot be decomposed into more simple attributes, so it is a simple attribute. Now if you consider the address can be termed as composite attributes, because it may happen the attribute address consists of more than one simple attribute. For example, an address attribute may contain road number, it may contain house number, it may contain the state. Now if we say that road number, house number and state, these three attributes are simple attribute, then the address attribute consists of three different simple attribute. Hence the attribute address will be called composite attributes. That is, we can say composite attribute constructed with n simple attribute. Now the single valued attribute. What is single valued attribute? The single valued attribute, for example, consider this roll number. In a college, a student has exactly one roll number, so the value for the roll number for a student contains only one element, so this roll number attribute will be called single valued attribute. Now what is multi-valued attribute? Now assume that the student has another attribute called phone number. Now for a particular student, it may happen that he or she has more than one phone number, so that phone number attribute will be called multi-valued attribute. Now the derived attribute. What is derived attribute? If we consider age as the student attribute, then this age can be called derived attribute. Why? Because suppose S1 student has a attribute date of birth. Now the age attribute can be calculated from the date of birth. How? Because the age can be calculated in this way: current date minus date of birth. If we do that, then we can calculate the age of the student. So that attribute age is called derived attribute. Why? Because we are deriving the value of this attribute from another attribute. So age is called derived attribute. So these are the different types of attributes that exist for a entity. Thank you.